So testing is, in my view, just absolutely essential, right? Like not only just to make sure the equipment works, which is an enormous test in itself.
Yeah.
Every piece of equipment you add, it feels like the complexity level rises exponentially. So you have to make sure everything works, but also like do dry runs through the programming, right, to make sure that you can do it right. And if you, for example, have a live stream that's scheduled to go for an hour, it's nice to be able to run through the whole thing, make sure that technically things are going to work, and second, make sure that your content is going to flow in such a way that you fill the hour.
Yeah, and we're not saying you have to do this every time, but this is definitely one of those things, especially when you're creating your show, you're getting things blocked out, you're trying to figure out how the it's all going to work. That's what it's going to happen. For us, I think we feel more comfortable talking, and luckily, it's pretty casual as far as podcasts when that goes. We're not looking for really polished conversation. Usually, it's a nice conversation to go where it goes, but it's definitely, I mean, I remember for us, even having the plan of knowing when we need to end was important, because maybe someone's going to get there, or like, people are going to come back in the office, or you need the space or what have you. So even timing and planning all that stuff, which I think really comes into like even part of the planning, which goes into the promotion, because if you don't tell anybody about it and you just go live, the people that are there when you go live have an opportunity to watch you, but that might not even be the people that want to watch you. So it's real important to keep people informed as far as that goes. But the testing is so important. I mean, I do a lot of testing on my own, and so setting up shots for myself, but I've gotten pretty good at that. It's difficult to set up a shot where you're going to look good, that you're going to set it all up and that kind of thing. So having another set of hands, if not just have someone to sit in that's about your size, to be able to get the shot and the lighting right, because all that stuff should be considered. That is, if you're trying to do on the high end. I don't want to freak anybody out of not doing live stream. In fact, that if you don't have equipment, you don't have any of that stuff, it's probably a lot better because people will forgive you for it. I think that that's the nicest part about it, is I think no matter what live stream we've done, it reminds me of the nightly news or whatever news it's on. The producers of the content there, like, they're not going to reuse what they just made. It's behind them. Like, as soon as they did it, it's gone. And so it's a lot freeing for that, for someone that is that does highly produced videos, that it's like, well, we just went with it. I said what my name was instead of doing a super. We might not have done this in the right order or whatever, but that's okay, because it's a fluid thing, and people are kind of wanting that realness as well. I think that really connects the audience to the conversation.
Yeah, for sure. And going back to the testing issue, I feel like there's two versions of testing, right? So there's the far out version, where you're testing days or weeks in advance to make sure everything's working and you're trying out the content. And then there's the near term testing, and we had this problem so many times. I am embarrassed to say it, where it's 30 minutes before the stream is supposed to start, and for whatever reason, our setup can't communicate with the hosting, the stream service,
Yeah.
and we have to like test to make sure the connection is solid with them, and it's like computer level tech support stuff.
Yeah. I mean, the crazy thing is that it could even be a different thing. And it was, for us, it was somewhat intermittent. Now, I think that plays a lot into when we were doing it. We were doing it when we were trying to live stream to Facebook before there was a lot of support outside of Facebook's app to do so. So we were, going in the place that now a lot of that stuff's been figured out a lot better. And I'd have to say our streams and stuff that we do now is definitely goes a lot smoother, but we also changed hardware. And so, it's a hard balance there. And I mean, for us, we're really lucky that we have a lot of equipment to choose from to piece something together. But I don't know how many times I was testing what we had and what, like, maybe the stuff I wanted to use for whatever, and it wasn't working. And it was like, I can only imagine if I had bought that stuff for that purpose and and then it didn't work, that would be a really big issue. So, researching and making sure everything plays well together. I know from just doing normal broadcast stuff, we have a lot of cameras that can do 4K and, lots of high frame rates all over the place. where, when you're broadcasting, you want to unify those cameras. And that's something that you wouldn't really think of if you weren't in the broadcast world. It's like, no, it's really important. If you're going out there in HD 2997, you better make sure every camera is set up that way. Otherwise, you're going to get weird drift or sync issues, or the camera not even be able to be seen. I mean, I had too many times testing out other things that were like, this isn't working. Oh, I just need to put it in the right frame rate. What? Like, it's just, you would think that wouldn't, I mean, it makes sense that you just aren't going to be able to throw that in. And, with today's like nonlinear editors, we can just take stuff. Whereas before it used to have been like, what is this? I don't know what to deal with. Whereas that's kind of where you're at with some of the streaming stuff. So it's the multicam stuff. Like I said, I mean, you're able to do what a small market television station could do with millions of dollars. For I'd say, what do you think? What's the cheapest professional setup you could have for a live stream? Just one camera, and set up, including the phone, under $1,000 or something.
I mean, if you're counting a phone as professional, which I think you can, we're talking a phone and some good lighting. So your phone is probably $1,000. I mean,
yeah, that's what I mean. I mean, I think honestly, just picking the best place to shoot and using your phone, and of course, having a stand for it. So the $20.
Yeah, you need camera support. You need decent lighting, which you can get away with some, natural lighting and practicals.
Stuff,
yeah. You need something to capture audio, I guess. So if you have a little microphone, then that's great. Like if you can get a little lavalier mic.
And there's a lot of those that are sub $100 that can go into Android or iOS devices for if you're using your phone, that are really easy, and they've made it pretty easy to use those kind of peripherals in those tools. But yeah, lighting and sounding good, and then making sure that the support's where it's at. But really, it comes down to, I actually think it comes down to the content. I think everybody will forgive everything, and this always bums me out because I love making beautiful things. But if the content's no good, who cares what it looks like?
We're discovering that now with this whole shelter at home thing, right? In that you're seeing a lot of broadcasters doing stuff out of their homes.
We're seeing, yeah, exactly. We're seeing all the comedy shows at night doing comedy from home, which I think is crazy because I know they're really supported very heavily by a lot of writers. And so that means that they're doing a lot of communication remotely too, even on the writing side of it, because they're not just going up there and just going on. I mean, they're funny, I'm sure, and I'm sure there's a little bit of just going with it. But for the most part, the good jokes, are likely written before, and that preparation really goes a long way because it does make that one shot interesting. I mean, I was watching The Daily Show, and although the shot was relatively interesting, Trevor Noah's not shaving, or he's not trying to look like he normally does. He's not wearing a suit, but he's wearing nicer clothes or whatever. He's not in his pajamas or nothing, and it's just we can do really high quality stuff. You just got to be deliberate about it. I think once we add a microphone to this, maybe even trying to figure out a way to make our cameras look better, although I don't know if it's necessary. But you can see with mine, I'm on an iMac, and really a lot of the lighting in this room is just from my windows, and it just happens to be somewhat diffused because it's cloudy outside. Whereas Mike's in a room with no windows and all studio lighting, which is interesting because he's at daylight studio lighting, which he looks a little blue. It looks a little hot, but even if he adjusted that, it wouldn't make any difference. We should figure that out, of like how to turn off the auto exposure, because that's like one of the first things I realized, that why I was a video producer and why it mattered, because I cared when I turn on a camera. Like, I'm not going to deal with this changing while I'm shooting. Like, I remember when white balance, that used to be the thing. If you had an auto white balance, that it would just always change, not just lock in when you started recording. And so that's a really, that's a big deal in the, how it feels. Like, I just feel like my shot's been a lot more constant. Whereas Mike, whenever he uses his hands, he turns a little green.
I think I blame this computer.
Yeah,
it's PC.
Yeah,
the Mac's got a little nicer camera.
Next time. Yeah, we can just use FaceTime next time. It'll probably all look good.